What's up, guys? It's your girl T, and today we are talking about my armpits. A lot of you guys seem to have noticed the complexion of my armpits and have been asking me about it in the comments under various videos where I wear sleeveless attire. And it was sort of perfect because I was planning to do a video about a related topic anyway that kind of folds into the matter of my pits. So here we go, we're gonna do it all in one today. Now, the question I keep getting is how I keep my armpits so light. And for the uninitiated, that's my armpit. There they are. They are armpits. I mean, I don't really think there's such a thing as a nice looking armpit, but I guess the goal is to keep your armpits looking as nice as they can. The main answer to how I keep my armpits so light is not like rubbing lemon rinds all over them or any of that bullshit. I just never shaved. I won't say never because I have had to shave my armpits maybe a handful of times throughout my life here and there in case of emergency or things like that. But from a young age, I somehow came across the knowledge that shaving exacerbates pigmentation in your armpits because the razor is creating micro cuts on your skin as you're shaving the hairs. Now, I knew about this at a very young age before I even needed to start doing anything about hair in my armpits, before I actually had armpit hair. And I basically made a choice that once I did need to start taking care of my armpit hair, I was going to avoid shaving. In the beginning, I would use depilatory creams like Nair and things like that, but as time went on, I just started waxing. Initially, I would go to like your typical neighborhood nail salon and just have them do it there, but it is incredibly easy and far cheaper to just do it yourself. So as time went on, I started waxing my own armpits. But I was curious about permanent hair removal because removing unwanted body hair is just a pain in the ass. Because between waxing my armpits, waxing my lady mustache, waxing my junk, waxing my legs, it's just a lot to deal with. And I went the route of waxing because it's actually lower maintenance than having to shave or something like that because it lasts longer. But low maintenance isn't the same as no maintenance. So I was interested in laser and I asked my dermatologist about this. This was maybe 5-6 years ago. Anyway, I remember that a couple years prior to this 5 year ago-ish mark, so probably I would say 7 years ago, I had already inquired about laser hair removal with the same dermatologist, and she said that I was not a good candidate because at that time the lasers weren't really able to detect enough of a contrast on people of my complexion or even lighter. Basically, anyone who's not Anne Hathaway is not a good candidate for laser. You have to have very, very fair skin and very, very dark hair. You want to be able to have that contrast so that the laser can actually detect the follicle and destroy it when the doctor is passing the laser over your hair follicles. So 2 years or so go by, bringing us up to the 5 years ago mark, and my dermatologist was like, hey, new technology, we got new lasers, we can do that laser hair removal if you want. Now, initially, I only wanted to get the laser hair removal for some unwanted facial hair. I used to basically have a whole bunch of like coarse, dark hairs that would grow here, like right here on this side of my chin primarily. Occasionally some on this side, but it was really this side that was the worst, and I don't know why. It drove me nuts. And I felt like I was just tweezing these hairs out constantly. So I decided to start there with the laser, again, going through my dermatologist and having her do it rather than going to one of these Mickey Mouse laser hair removal places in a strip mall. So that's what I did. I went through 5 to 6 rounds of the laser treatment on my chin at my dermatologist. It was quick, slightly painful, but not terrible because it was quick, expensive because it was not covered by insurance. And that was that. I thought that I was all good. I thought that I was never going to have hair on my chin again. And then about a year and a half later, the hair started coming back. Once the hair started coming back, time went on and it seemed like the hair was coming back even more. Perhaps just as bad, if not worse than it had been prior to me getting the laser treatment in the first place. So I was pretty full hot at this point because I had dropped all that dough on getting this hair lasered off permanently. And here it was, all of it was back. It got to a point where I was in my bathroom pretty much daily trying to tweeze a new hair or 2 new hairs that had come through. It just seemed like I could never get through a day without having to deal with feeling a new hair starting to poke through my skin. And that shit ain't cute. And I was just living with it. You know, I was dealing with this issue of these hairs like just growing and constantly tweezing, and it seemed like I was just living in my bathroom tweezing hairs out of my fucking face. And the amount of damage it was doing to my skin was considerable because sometimes, the hairs would barely be poking through, but I would want to tweeze it out. So I would be doing these excavations to try to tweeze hairs that I couldn't grab. And this area of my skin became so damaged and scarred that I remember I had treated myself to a facial, and the facialist asked me like what was going on here. And I explained to her about my issues with hairs and how it was really frustrating because I'd had laser and then all the hair came back. And she was the one who suggested I look into electrolysis. I was familiar with electrolysis because I remember even my dermatologist had suggested I try that in the 7 years ago mark before she had the laser that she actually used on me. So before the laser was available to use on me, when she had the more primitive version of it that was not compatible with people of color, she suggested I look into electrolysis, and I just never did. Electrolysis is something with which many people might not be familiar because it's not very well promoted or discussed. I feel like the electrology industry doesn't know what the hell they're doing because they've actually got the only FDA approved method for permanent hair removal. Laser hair removal is not approved by the FDA, and I am a testament to why. Whereas electrolysis has been around, I believe, since the 1970s. The way electrolysis works is they use a tiny, tiny, tiny probe. It is thinner than a needle, and they basically insert it into your hair follicle, zap it, and then remove the hair. And the zapping means they're actually sending an electric current into your hair follicle to kill it permanently. That's redundant. Once something's killed, it's killed. Here's the problem with electrolysis. Because you're going follicle by follicle by follicle by follicle, it takes forever. The fact that electrolysis is time consuming also makes it expensive because you can only get through so many follicles in the typical 15 minutes, half an hour, 1 hour, 90-minute session, however long you're booking. So the fact that you have to go follicle by follicle, hair by hair, means it's going to take quite a lot of time to actually get through and kill, for the love of God. Going hair by hair, follicle by follicle means that it's naturally going to take an inordinate amount of time to get through the hundreds or thousands of hair follicles you may have in whatever particular area you are treating. Time equals money. Time equals money. Not to mention, electrolysis, it doesn't feel great. It definitely is not for the weak of spirit because it does not feel good. It's fairly painful. It's more painful in some places than others, and it also will depend on how much current your electrologist is using on a particular area, whether they're using the blend or thermolysis, and that's really technical stuff with electrolysis that you don't really need to know for the purposes of this video. I'm just kind of giving you my reasons and my feelings on laser versus electrolysis, which all relates back to this initial question of my armpits. But knowing all this and knowing my frustrations with the failure of the laser hair removal, I felt like it was at least worth a shot. Again, I decided to start with my chin because it was a small area. I felt like it would be like a good way for me to give it a trial run before I moved on to my armpits, which was, what I had planned to do with the laser after going in for it on my chin. And then when the hair came back, I was really glad I didn't spend more money to do my armpits as well. Started with my chin, and it's all done, as are my armpits. Obviously, long story short, I had success with the chin area. I ended up switching to a different electrologist for a number of reasons. After going to the electrologist suggested to me by my facialist, I ended up switching from her because one, she was just disorganized and unprofessional, and two, she actually really fucked my skin up on my underarms. So it's really kind of warming my heart that you guys even think that my armpits look nice. The electrologist you go to and his or her technique will have everything to do with the condition of your skin afterward, because my skin looked so dark and scarred after I was going to the first electrologist that I just thought that there was no saving it. I just felt that, well, I've invested all this time and money into getting my hair removed from my underarms. I at least want to see that through and make sure that I don't have hair growing there if I've sacrificed the appearance of my skin for all of this. But ultimately, me getting frustrated with the unprofessionalism of my first electrologist was a blessing in disguise because it allowed me to find my new electrologist who used a different setting on her epilator, and over time my skin was able to heal and regenerate. And now, it looks like it did back when I was waxing it. You can't even tell how bad it had actually gotten. I wish I had before and after pics to show you guys the scarred skin from the first electrologist versus how it looks now, but quite frankly, I never knew there would be an after. I thought that, okay, I'm just fucked now, but at least I won't have hair there. As far as price goes, electrolysis can range, but generally it's somewhere in the neighborhood of $100 an hour. For me to get rid of all the unwanted hair on my chin and my underarms, I was doing electrolysis for about 2 years, I would say, but initially I was only going like once a month with the first electrologist because she lived really, really far away from me and it was just hard to kind of schedule everything with her. And then when I essentially fired her and moved on to my second electrologist, she suggested coming more often because, you know, you'll get done faster. You have to do electrolysis based on your hair's growth cycle. So if the hair is in the resting phase, meaning it's not alive and growing, then the electrolysis, it probably isn't going to take for those particular follicles. You want all the follicles you're zapping to be in their active growth phase, meaning they're alive, and it takes the electrolysis way better and will almost guaranteed be dead when they zap it. Once I had switched to my new electrologist and was going probably every single week, I was probably doing that for 6 to 8 months, I would say. Usually like shorter sessions, not a full hour, more like 45 minutes I think I did on average. So yeah, the cost was considerable, but to never have to worry about waxing or shaving or anything with my arms and to have this hair gone from my chin is great. It's been about 1.5 years, so this is right around when the hair started coming back when I'd gotten the laser. It was about 1.5 years when I was just like, why am I getting all this hair again on my chin? Whereas here with the electrolysis, I've had the opposite result. Everything is great. I'm probably going to be going back to get electrolysis on some other areas like my cheeks and maybe even my lady mustache to get rid of some of that hair. So based on my experience, in my experience alone, I would have to absolutely say that yes, laser hair removal absolutely is a scam. I mean, maybe the lasers they have now are better than the ones they had a couple years ago because again, even in just 2 years, I went from not being a possible candidate to being a possible candidate, although a failed one in the end. So who knows, maybe the lasers are better now and I would have had success now than I did then. But quite frankly, both electrologists I went to, the shitty one and the great one, said that 90% of their clientele is people who had laser hair removal and the hair came back. Laser basically just makes your follicles sick for a while and then the hair will very, very often come back. Not for everyone, but for an overwhelming amount of people. Failed laser hair removal clients are basically the only thing keeping the electrolysis industry alive, in my estimation. Electrolysis, it's expensive, so is laser hair removal, except electrolysis actually works. Again, the big cons with electrolysis are not just the expense, but the time and the pain, but it was one of the best decisions I ever made. I wouldn't say no given a chance to do it over at all. If anything, I would have done it sooner and just skipped the laser entirely. And you guys seem to think I have nice looking pits, so I guess that's saying something. More than anything, being able to get up and be able to put on a tank top without having to worry about tidying up my underarms is awesome every single day. Anyway, there you have it. That is the answer to how I keep my underarms so light. At this point, it's mainly because I don't do anything to them because there's no hair there and the skin is able to just be left alone. And prior to that, it was by always waxing or using depilatory creams rather than shaving. I never used any specific like lightening products or anything like that because the skin stayed pretty well complected because of my hair removal methods. And now you know the rest of my laser hair removal story as well. So there's that. Before I get out of here, shout out to Ghana Goddess and any and all of you who are participating in our Mind, Body, Spirit Challenge. We are right about at the 1 week mark this weekend, so that's very exciting. I hope you guys have had a great first week. Unfortunately for me, on day 2 of the Mind, Body, Spirit Challenge, I ate shit doing a box jump at the gym because I got distracted and gashed my entire shin open. So it was very painful, but I still finished the workout that day because I'm a fucking warrior. So that's been slowing me down a bit while it heals. You know, it's a pretty good scrape, so I'm very careful. I'm trying to make sure it doesn't get infected or anything terrible because box jumps are one of those things where, like, I've seen it happen to people where they fucked their shit up and got really bad infections. So I'm just being very careful to look after it and praying. And yeah, no box jumps for me for a little while. If you don't know what the fuck I'm talking about, I will link the video for the Mind, Body, Spirit Challenge right here where I explained all the rules and how I was collaborating with Ghana Goddess on this. We are only starting the 2nd week of 6, so there's still plenty of time to join if you missed the boat on day 1 because you can still do a lot of good work in 5 weeks. That is it for this video. Thank you for watching. Thank you for the compliments on my armpits, and I will see you guys in the next video. Bye bye.
That's a nappy-headed hose there, I'm going to tell you that now.